My colleague has made a case for more government intervention into the problems on Wall Street and our economy, basically blaming the free markets for our failures. I would like to make it clear what I think most Americans already know, is that many of the problems we're having today, particularly problems with AIG, the failures on Wall Street, the mortgage industry, actually goes back not to greed in the private market, but political greed. The problems that were created when this Congress and this government set up Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac as government-sponsored enterprises with the implied and now very explicit backing of the American people, provided so much cheap credit to the market. Securities that were bought and sold by many companies. AIG is in trouble because of these bad mortgages that basically originated with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. My point is that the problems we're having are caused by the wrong kind of government intervention. This is not a failure of free enterprise. This is a failure of government solutions and the lack of government oversight into enterprises like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac that were started. Now, in a situation where we already have debt as a nation, we're borrowing excessively now, and our economy is slowing down, we're in a situation where we have to continue to spend money to bail out these companies because of bad government decisions decades ago. A lot of money is being spent and a lot is being wasted by this Congress. We've had a debate over the last 2 years about wasteful spending and earmarks. There's been a lot of talk about creating more transparency and to stop this wasteful spending. We had an ethics bill that passed with a lot of fanfare where we talked about making these earmarks more transparent, putting them in the bills themselves so that the American people could see what we're spending, and that if we were going to have a bridge to nowhere, at least the American people knew that we were spending that money. We've talked about this for the last 2 years, and even the President has recognized that so much of this earmarking has resulted in wasteful spending in transportation and especially in the military, that he's issued an executive order that has made it clear that when we produce a bill like the Defense Authorization bill, and then as an aside we produce what we call report language with oftentimes thousands of earmarks, politically directed spending all over the country, few that the military asked for, most they didn't. A lot of these are meritorious projects. But the fact is, if you want to look up the bill itself, the text, in search for different types of spending, it's not available because it's not in the bill itself. For many years here in the Senate and the Congress as a whole, we've produced spending and authorization bills and then did the report language on the side with these hidden earmarks that people don't know is there. The President said in his executive order that when we send a bill over with report language on the side, that he is going to direct his agencies not to honor these earmarks unless they're meritorious, unless they agree with the mission of the agency and the whole purpose of the legislation. It doesn't mean that these are all taken out and that they're lost, which has been presented on the floor here today. What it means is that they have a little scrutiny, that the administration, if they see a wasteful project, that they don't feel obligated to spend that money, which is a good thing. But in this Defense Authorization bill, some senators, my Democrat colleagues, have decided they want to go around this executive order. They want all of these earmarks to have the force of law, which means whether they're meritorious or not, that the administration has to honor them. And the way they've done this, which sets us back years as far as earmark reform here in the Senate, is they put a little section in this bill that references all of these earmarks and in effect makes them law. Now, I've offered one amendment and asked to have one amendment on this defense authorization bill, and there's a tradition here in the Senate that senators are allowed to offer an amendment. Now, I've been waiting a week to offer the amendment, and what it does is it strikes that little section that tries to secretly attach all of the earmarks to the actual law. It's a very simple amendment of 3 words: strike section 1002. What that does is it does not eliminate all of these earmarks. But what it does is it gives the administration the right they should have is not to spend money on projects that are in this green book that are not needed by our military, that are not needed to defend our country, and that they consider wasteful. We should not allow members of the Senate to pretend to have reformed the earmark process, to pretend to have a more ethical process here, when in fact what they've done here is the most unethical thing we've ever done with earmarks, is to try to make something secret actually have the force of law with a little section written here. My amendment would change that and put it back to the way it's been for years. And I would just ask my colleagues not to go backwards as far as earmark reform, not to defy what the American people have told us increasingly, that this wasteful spending at a time of economic downturn, in a time of war, in a time of heavy debt, we've got $5 billion worth of earmarks in this little green book that Americans won't see. You can't bring it up, as we've talked about in our ethics reform bill, in a searchable format where people can go through and find all this wasteful spending. It's hidden and it's not right. So I'd encourage my colleagues to appeal to the majority leader to give me this amendment so that we can at least have a vote. And I would encourage all of my colleagues to vote for it.